Hi scholars, we are going over lesson 8 today. So before we get into the application problem, I wanted to show you all what your sprint looks like for today. So when we do sprints, you have a side A and a side B, and you have 2 minutes to complete as many problems as you can on each side. So just to make sure that you understand how to do this sprint, you're looking at the fractions and you're writing in the fraction that is shaded. So here I see that my circle is in halves. That's 2 parts. And so there's one part. I know you can barely see it. But when you get your paper, when you're in front of your paper, you'll be able to see it. One side is shaded. So that's 1/2, 1/2. Here, this circle has 3 parts. One is shaded. That's 1/3. That's 1/3. On this rectangle that has 5 sections, one is shaded. That's 1/5, 1/5. So what you're going to do, you're going to set a timer either on your phone or on your computer. You can Google a timer or go on YouTube and find a timer for 2 minutes. 2 minutes only. Be honest with yourself and complete as many as you can. Even when the timer goes off, make sure you go back and complete them, and take your time and check your work. Make sure that you're practicing reading fractions correctly. Okay, that's the only way you'll get better, is to practice. Now, moving on to your application problem. This is a review from the last lesson. It says, for breakfast, Mr. Schwartz spent 1/6. And I want you to practice, when you see fractions written out in word form, I want you to write it in unit form like I did here. So 1/6 is 1/6. I want you to practice writing that out. For breakfast, Mr. Schwartz spent 1/6 of his money on a coffee and 1/6 of his money on a bagel. What fraction of his money did Mr. Schwartz spend on breakfast? So what you are doing here, you are taking the amount of his money that he has spent and figuring out how much did he spend on breakfast. Okay, so even if you need to draw it out in a rectangle, make a tape diagram, you need to make sure you show your work. Draw a picture showing me how you figured out how much of his money he spent on breakfast. Okay, after that, you are going here to write your written response. And remember, you're using race to respond to your short answer question. So you should restate the question and then answer the question. Okay, I'm looking for at least 1 or 2 strong sentences there. So that's all for your application problem. Next, we have our problem set. So one thing that I'm realizing is that a lot of you all are really getting a good hang of fractions. And I know that in my videos before, I had pretty much gone through all of the problem set and then allows you to do your exit ticket independently. But this lesson, or the next 2 lessons, are going to be a little bit different. So I am going to read through the directions with you all to make sure you understand what each word is saying or what you're expected to do. I will look through a sample problem. I may model a problem, but the majority of the work you're going to complete independently. When you come back, you'll be in the 4th grade, and as you get older from here on out, 3rd grade was the first year for you all to figure out, okay, what is it like for me to learn on your own? And so now Miss Breeding is going to take a couple of steps back to allow you to work on your own and for you to figure out some problems on your own. So don't be afraid. I'm looking for you to try your best, but I am also looking for you to just make sure that you're putting in a lot of hard work and showing a lot of tenacity with math. Even if it gets a little bit difficult, still pushing through and trying your best. Okay, so I won't be going through each problem for you all. I'll be checking your work when I get your packets. Okay, so number 1, it says, show a number bond representing what is shaded and unshaded in each of the figures. Draw a visual model that will be represented by the same number bond. So there are 2 things that you're expected to do on this sheet. One is to create a number bond. We worked with number bonds before. And next is to draw another picture that represents the shaded and unshaded sections of your fraction, okay, or of your picture. So I understand that it's not as clear what is shaded, so I'm going to shade it in a little bit more here. So on this sample, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections. So my denominator or my number at the bottom will be 8. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shaded sections. Okay. So the number in the middle is 1 because this whole rectangle is one whole. Okay. So each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All of these will make 8 over 8. So that's one whole. So that's why 1 is here in the middle. So in each of your number bonds, there should be a 1 in the middle because there is one figure. It's just split into eighths. So next, what is to be drawn on your number bond is how many are shaded. So we have 5 over 8 because 5 of these boxes are shaded in. So that's why you have 5 over 8 here. On the other side of the number bond, you are writing how many are not shaded. So one side is how many is shaded out of 8. The next side is how many is unshaded or not shaded out of 8. And those two sections will complete your number bond. Okay. Next here, they drew remember you have to draw a model to represent the same number bond. So we have our whole, which is our whole circle. It's split into 8 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 5 that are not shaded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this case, this 5 over 8 is what's unshaded. And then you have 1, 2, 3 that are shaded. And that's where the 3 over 8 is that's unshaded. If you're still a little bit confused, it's okay. I'm going to model number 1 for you all. Let me try to get the lighting a little bit better. Okay, that may work. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles that's in this shape. So my denominator is going to be 5. Okay, and so now I can start working on my number bond because I know that's the first thing I need to do. Okay, so the number that's going to go here in the middle is a 1 because I have one figure here. This is one whole. This entire shape is a whole. It's just divided into 5 sections. Okay, so next I know both of my denominators are going to be 5 because there are 5 parts in this whole. And so there are 3 shaded parts. There's 3 over 5. And then there are 2 unshaded parts, 2 over 5. So that's what your number bond looks like. The one in the middle represents this entire figure. Okay, that's one figure. And then there are 5 sections. So that's why my number at the bottom is 5. There are 3 of those 5 that are shaded. And then there are 2 of those 5 that are not shaded. Okay, so that's where I have my 3 out of 5 and my 2 out of 5. Next, I need to draw another shape that has 5 sections. So to make it simple, I am going to draw a square. Or it's more like a rectangle. Okay. And I'm going to, how many sections would I make? How many sections were in this shape here? That's right, I'm going to do 5. Get a pencil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not quite even. That's why it's very important to draw your shapes with a pencil. Remember, with fractions, you have to take your time and make sure you draw your lines or your sections evenly. Okay, it's a lot better. So I have my 5 sections here. this a little bit. And so I can either shade 3 of them and leave 2 unshaded, or I can shade 2 and leave 3 unshaded. For this problem, I am going to shade 2. And let's see if this picture or the shape that I drew matches my number bond. Do I have one whole shape? Yes. Do I have 3 out of 5? Yes, I have 3 here that are not shaded. And then I have my 2 out of 5 that are shaded. Okay. So what you're going to do is the same things for number 2, 3, and 4. You're doing them on your own. Remember, the first step is to draw your number bond. The number in the center is always going to be 1 because you're just working with one shape on these. Next, you have the parts that's shaded, parts that's not shaded, and then you draw your own figure. You could draw 3 squares, you could draw 3 circles, whatever shape you feel most comfortable with making equal sections. You can draw that here. And then you'll need to show one part and then the other part. So either one part shaded, the other part unshaded. Okay, you can switch it up. It does not have to be the same as this one here. Okay, so the 2 things I'm expecting on this side is a number bond and a different visual or a different picture to represent, that's represented by the same number bond. Okay, if you're confused, please go back and rewind before you move forward. On to the next page. Okay, this is our last page before our problem set. Before our exit ticket. There are 2 different, number 5 has 4 different parts, and then you have number 6, which is a word problem that I'll walk you through. So number 5 is very similar to what we worked on here with numbers 1 through 4. With number 5, it says, draw a number bond with 2 parts showing the shaded and unshaded fractions of each figure. Decompose both parts of the number bond into unit fractions. So, the first thing you are going to do here is draw a number bond with 2 parts. We just did that. So, okay, so next, a 1 goes here. You can barely see my writing. Hold on 1 second. That's better. So what I want you to do now, I'm going to pause my video. And I want to see what you all come up with this one, because at this point you have done number 4 on your own, or 1 through 4 on your own. And I want to see how you complete 5A. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to complete 1A. So you're completing this number bond. You may begin. Okay, so this is what you should have here. You have your 1 to represent your 1 whole, and then you have 1 over 4. 1 second. You have 1 over 4, and then 3 over 4. Okay, because there's 1 out of the 4 that's not shaded, and 3 out of the 4 that is shaded. Okay. So next it says decompose both parts of the number bond into unit fractions. So what you are going to do next is you're going to break down this 3 out of 4 even smaller. You're going to break it into 3 pieces or 3 parts. If I had to break down these 3, what would they be? Do you know? If I had to write fractions in each of these to represent this part of the number bond, what would it be? That's right, it'll be 1/4 all the way around. 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. Okay, so I have 1/4 in each of these here. So I have 1/4 here, 1/4 here, 1/4 here, 1/4 here. So if you add all of those quarters or 1/4 up together, it'll be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and that 4/4 gives you your one whole. Okay, so what you're doing here is you're taking your number bond and then you're breaking it all the way down so you can get as simple as possible. Okay, I'm going to go through B with you as well, just so you can get another example of what you're expected to do here. So for B, remember with your number bond, you need your 3 parts, your middle. You already know what number goes in your middle. And then your 2 sections at the bottom. So here we know our 1 is here because we're looking at one figure. I'm sure why you all can't see. And so there are 2 parts that are shaded. So we're going to put 2/3. And for the part that's not shaded, 1/3. Now, can we break down 1/3 any simpler? No, because 1 is just one section. You can't break it down any simpler than that. Okay, you can't put 0/3 because that just means nothing shaded in. So 1/3 is the furthest that you can break it down. Can you break down 2? Yes, you can. You could break this 2 down into 2 different parts. Okay. This number at the top, this numerator at the top, that's telling you how many sections you break it down into. So it's a 2/3, so I know I can break it down 2 more times. I can put a 1/3 here and a 1/3 here. So let's count to see if that adds up to our whole. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 3/3, 3/3 is one whole, which is the same as our number in the center of our number bond. Okay, even though I know this could be a little bit tricky for you all, I want you to try your best. Okay, so you just start off with the number bond the way that you know how to draw it. And then after that, you are going to break it down even simpler. Okay, breaking it down into your unit fraction. And I am going to pause the video for a second so I can rewrite it because I know it's not as clear for you all, and I want to talk you through it to make sure that you understand. So I'm going to pause the video for 1 second to make sure that you all can see what you need to see. Okay, scholars. So let me walk you through. Let's see if I can get better lighting for you all. Okay, this seems to be a little bit better. Okay, let's try it like this. Okay, so for part A, I had the number bond. Okay, and so I know that this shape I have is one whole. Okay, next here, I want to break it down. So I have one side that is not shaded, so that's 1 out of 4. And here I have 3 that are shaded, 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be 3 over 4. So I can't break 1 down any further, because if I broke it down here, that would just be 1 over 4 again, and I don't need to write that twice. So we don't need to break 1 over 4. If there's a numerator or the top number is 1, you don't need to break that down anymore. This side is broken down as far as it can go. But over here, the numerator is 3. So that means I can break this down 3 more times, because that's the number that's at the top. So I have 1, 2, 3. So I want to break these down as simply as I can. So if I have 3, that means I can make 1 out of 4 3 times. 1 over 4, 1 over 4, 1 over 4. Okay? So that's just like for the shaded parts here. I have 1 over 4 that's shaded here, 1 out of 4 that's shaded here, and 1 out of 4 that's shaded here. That's the same thing. It's just representing the shaded parts. There are 3 out of 4 total, but I wanted to break this down to show you there's 1 out of 4, another 1 out of 4, another 1 out of 4. Okay, so that is how you break it down. Moving on to part B. Draw my number bond the exact same way. I'm putting a 1 here because there's one figure that we're drawing. I have 1 out of 3 that's not shaded, and 2 out of 3 that are shaded. Can I break down 1 again? No, because I would just be writing 1 out of 3 again. I don't need to do that. Can I break down this 2? I can. I'm going to break it down into 2 parts. Okay. Then I would put 1 over 3 and 1 out of 3. Now I have 2 1 out of 3's, which is 1 and 1. That's 2 over 3. Okay. Again, if you are confused, it's okay. I want you to try your best. Okay. But if you're confused now, I do want you to rewind it a couple of minutes to try it again. Okay. See, watch it again. And then if you still don't get it, try it one more time before you ask for help. I believe that you can get this for sure. Okay. Next, the last problem for this lesson is a word problem. I am going to help guide you through the beginning. I have a couple of hints I want to remind you of before you get started independently, okay? Or some things that will help you to solve this correctly. So, the chef put 1/4 of the ground beef on the grill to make 1 hamburger and put the rest in the refrigerator. So what I would expect you to do now is to draw that out. Remember, when you have word problems that include fractions, you need to draw everything out so you understand what's going on as you read. So right now, I would want to see you draw some shape that's split into quarters, which means 4 parts. And you're shading in the part that has been used. And you know the rest is in the refrigerator. And then it says draw a 2-part number bond. That's the same thing we did up here. Showing the fraction of the ground beef on the grill and the fraction in the refrigerator. So for number 1, you have to draw a number bond. Okay. Number 2, you have to draw a visual model of the ground beef. So here I'm going to tell you to draw a tape diagram. Okay. And what I mean by that, just draw your rectangle, however many parts you need to have, and then shade it in. Okay. So you should have a number bond and a tape diagram or rectangle drawing. Okay. So one thing that I want to remind you of is the same numerator, which means the top number is used 4, and the same denominator, which is the bottom number 4. This equals 1 whole. So if the number at the top and the number at the bottom match, that equals 1 whole. Okay. And the next thing I want to remind you of is to just make sure you use a rectangle. When it says draw a visual, a rectangle is your best bet to draw. Okay. So, part A, it says what fraction of the ground beef was in the refrigerator. You have to go back up and look at your number bond. Okay. Look at the problem. See what fraction of the ground beef was put back in the refrigerator. Part B, how many burgers can the chef make if he makes them all the same size as the first one? That's just going back and reading, paying attention to what the problem is telling you, okay? Don't rush through it. Take your time. Even if you have to reread it, that's okay. And lastly, show the refrigerated ground beef broken into unit fractions on your number bond above. Okay, so remember unit fractions are just like 1/2 or 3/4. Remember, the total number goes at the bottom. Okay, and the number at the top, let's just put a 2 there. Shaded or unshaded. Okay. So I want you to take your time. I'm very confident that you can successfully answer this problem or solve this problem. It's just a word problem. You know how to use number bonds. You're familiar with fractions now. Okay, so take your time. After this, you have your exit ticket. Your exit ticket is very similar to the first 2 pages or the first problem that we did. Okay, so take your time. Remember, no help on your exit ticket. And I will see you all next lesson.